It's the brand new Cali raised LED roof rack for the Toyota 4Runner. Stay tuned.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. So Trev, why did you end up picking Cali raised LED for your new roof rack?
There's a ton of roof racks on the market. A lot of them fantastic options. However, Cali raised LED kind of stood out for a few different points. Number one is that they have near 360 lighting around there, and it's actually built into the rack. It's not sitting above or anything else, it's actually built in. And two is that cool funky flip cover they have for the front light bar to help protect it from bugs, rocks, dirt, and everything else. And it just gives it a very slimmed down, shouldn't have to worry about wind noise or anything else.
Very clean.
Yeah, it's a very clean looking rack.
No further chit chat needed. Let's go ahead and get this install started.
Chitty chitty bang bang, do it. The first step to the assembly is actually disassembly. We need to take off the factory roof rails, and that starts with popping off the 4 plastic covers on each side. To do that, flat tip screwdriver, and this is just a little rubber pad. This is actually from the light pods, just to help protect it and give you a little leverage. So the secret is underneath, and you want to pull it out a little bit and then up. And of course this one doesn't want to freaking do it as soon as I try to get it. There, see? Oh my God. Step 2, take bolts out. Using a 12mm, we're gonna go ahead and remove the 2 bolts, and it's like that all 4 corners. Toyota puts on red Loctite. I do not think this is the same red Loctite. While it took a little bit of effort getting them off, it was no big deal. I'm sure it's the same as the blue here. So just FYI.
Ready?
Yep. Ah, you're pulling. We're gonna start the assembly with I guess we'll call it the pre-assembly. There's a lot of small parts and everything to go with this because of all the different features that it has. So we are going to start from the front and move our way backwards, starting with the front valance windscreen movie light cover thing. And we have it laid out. Start with the bracket here. Let me backtrack. This is the premium roof rack, so it has all the light covers with the included lights in the kit. So this bracket may be different than the standard roof rack. However, this guy right here, these inserts go on the inside of the roof rack. So this side would be on the passenger side, and then we have this little spacer here. This is the movable windscreen part of it. The bolt is pre-assembled in there. We want the spacer that fits in there like that, and then the bracket with, again, these on the inside towards it, and then it goes through the notch that has the curve. This is what's going to adjust up and down to expose the light and to cover it. I'm going to take the turn knob and go ahead and install it a little bit. It'll just help hold everything together, but you want to make sure to keep everything nice and loose. We have the 3/8 inch bolt washer, the silver washer on it, and that goes through the outside. However, before you put it all the way through, you want to take the brass washer, put it in between there, put the bolt in, and then through the hole. not fitting. There we go. And then another brass washer on that side. Then you have a nylon lock nut. There we go. And you just want to keep everything hand tight in the beginning. We have to square everything up before we start tightening things down. Now to step 2. This is when things get a little tricky. This is the crossbeam support that goes from each of the front brackets that we already had. This is what the windscreen attaches to underneath the light cover. So this goes on the bracket, and then we have the windscreen that attaches to the outside, and you gotta hold all that kind of together while you loosely tighten the screws. Let's do it. These are the M4 button head bolts. And you just go ahead and put them in loosely. There are also the 3/4 inch button head bolts. They look exactly the same as the other ones. They're just slightly longer. Those go on the top of the wind fairing. We're gonna go ahead and put those in now, again, loosely, just to help keep everything together. Washer through there. There's no nut in there, no captured nut in there. So you got a nylon lock nut, it's 1/4 inch. And we'll loosely put that on. This side's done. Repeat on the other side. Now we're gonna take the 5/8 and go across the top. There's a little tension in there, so sometimes you gotta push it down to line up the sides, but now it should be easy all the way through. Now that all the hardware is on, we're gonna go ahead and tighten everything up nice and snug. The upper part is a 7/16 wrench, and then just go ahead and snug that up. All right. Now to flip it over. One of the things that I really liked about this rack versus some of the others on the market is that it's using the factory mounting points, and I don't have to drill any additional holes or anything into the top, which I don't think anybody really wants to do. But on the front, to support any weight or anything on the front end, is using these bumpers. And these bumpers just attach to the front of the mount very easily using the 3/8 nuts. Here's the bumper. Washer goes on that, into there, and then using the nut. Just hand tighten that for now. And we got 4 of these bad boys. Now that the bumpers are on, we're going to use a 7/16 wrench and tighten it up. Now that we have just about everything tightened up, the only thing left is to tighten up the bolts on the actual light cover. And on that one, it's really important not to torque this thing down and have it over tight, or you're not going to be able to open and close it easily. You want it tight, not super tight or anything else, just enough for it to still be able to move, and that's it. I'm using 2 14mm socket and wrench. Yep, good to go. On to the next side. Before you get too involved in this, you want to really make sure that the cover has the right tension, because it's going to be a real pain in the butt once this thing's fully installed to adjust the tension on those. So I've got the knobs completely loose so they have no factor in here, and you want it to be able to stand up on its own but push down easily, so you can let it go at any point. Cali raised LED also includes a edge trimming, and it has a nice bulb, so that way you actually create a seal between your roof rack and the roof of your car. And that way there is no wind noise or anything. It's all going up and over. And shiny side is going to be on the face out, and the soft bulb will be underneath where it touches the vehicle. It doesn't matter which end you start on, just pick one and the little edge slips right into the powder or onto the front edge there, and just start pushing that bad boy on. It's going to take a little bit of force. They give you extra, so that way once you get it all on, you just cut off any extra on the end. As you can see, I've got about 2 inches of extra length on there. I'm just gonna put a little cut there just to mark it, peel it back a little bit and cut it off. You can use wire cutters like I am, trauma shears, whatever you got. We started the pre-assembly on the front, completed that. Now we're gonna skip all the way to the back and do the rear valance. With the rear valance, we're gonna start using the extruded aluminum and the T-nuts. The T-nuts are very small nuts and they have angles to them. They look rectangular, but they actually have angles, so they go in a particular way. If they have a problem going in, you probably got it switched. A helpful tool with working with T-nuts is just a simple little pick. It makes it really easy to get in there and adjust it to where they match up and index on the holes. This is the rear end of the roof rack. This is the valance, and it's got the curve. This curve is going to follow the roof line in the back. The bottom holes are going to attach to the extruded aluminum. So we've got the T-nuts in there. We'll set it down, align it, and then we'll just use the pick to get them all squared. Now that the bolts are all lined up, we're going to use the 5/8 shorter bolts and hand tighten them down. Now that the valance is attached to the extruded aluminum, now we're going to attach these small brackets to the rear valance. The little nut goes on the inside towards the valance. These are the 5/8 inch long bolts. Now we just move on to the other side. When setting the rear valance up, the extruded aluminum is on this part, so it's actually going to be going angled away from the extruded aluminum on the top, or technically the bottom. These are the brackets for the rear, and these parts line up to the extruded aluminum. You want to have the notches towards the outside of the vehicle. So flat part goes to the inside. You want the bracket about 2 inches from the edge. Right about there. It doesn't have to be exact. Now we're going to start on the main part of the rack build, and we start with number 5 cross beam, starting from the front, counting backwards, the 5th position, and that is going to just bring the two together and make it easier to work on. We're starting with it upside down. That way it's a little easier. The bar is on the ground and it makes it a little easier for lining up the holes. Using the larger bolts in the bag, we're going to go ahead and hand tighten them on. Now onto the other side.
Right now we're working on adding crossbars. We're working from the center and we're going out one on each side.
With the center all secured, now it's time for the rear valance. Using the big bolts.
We're going to get this off the ground and put it on a table. Since we have the center supports in, should be easier to assemble on a table than laying on the ground, especially for us two old guys.
We should have done this step before we flipped it over. No biggie, it's just attaching a bolt and lock nut to the L bracket on the rear valance. And you're gonna need a 7/16 wrench just to tighten it all up. And with those in, we can now tighten up the whole rear end. But remember, it's aluminum. You just want it snug. You don't have to over torque it. Sweet. Now that we have the front all finished up, now we are going to move back to the middle. We're going to actually remove the one side of number 4, and we're going to drop some T-nuts into that. These T-nuts are going to connect to the feet of the roof rack. So this will be the bottom of the roof rack attached to the 4Runner. This is going to be connect to the bottom of number 4 to the front channel. This one is going to be the third cross member in the rear position underneath. So it's going to be sitting on top of these two. And remember, the angles go towards the bottom and it will be for both sides of the rack. This is the third cross beam, and because I have the 360 lights on here, then it will actually have a little difference. So we are going to be putting in the T-slots for in the rear bottom position for the base, but then we're also going to be putting 2 in the front one, the front bottom, so that way that'll be for the lights. We'll see in closer detail. On the third cross member, gets a little complicated because with the lights and also adding on the foot hardware, there's a lot of T-nuts. So essentially the bottom channels, each channel gets 2. Then the front channel also gets 2. So that is a total of 6 T-nuts in this one crossbeam. With the T-nuts in, we're going to loosely tighten up everything again. This is the 7th cross member, again working with the pods, so the T-nuts will be going towards the bottom rear, pretty much bottom towards wherever the light housing is. Again, 2 on the bottom rear and then 2 on the back side. Crossbar number 8, no T-nuts. We're just gonna go ahead and tighten this one down all the way, and then we're gonna work from back to front and crank everything down gently.
The number 2 bar goes in with no T-nuts.
We are at the front crossbar number 1. This one is going to be a little different depending on what light you ordered, if you even ordered a light. Depending on what light you ordered, they actually come with specific brackets. I have the one that has the amber on the outside, white on the inside. So this one will actually mount towards the front side and then the bottom rear channel. The last step of the rack assembly is the front valance. So we're going to go ahead and remove these that we put on just for temporary, just to kind of put that anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and remove these without dropping them. And then carefully put them in your pocket. And now go ahead and throw it on the front. The rack is officially assembled. Now we just have to flip it over, put the mounting feet on there, and all the brackets for the lights, install the lights, and wow, we're not even close to being done. We are measuring out where the next T-nuts are going to go. We're going to install the feet to the roof rack first. The feet for the rack, just like the rear, the U goes towards the outside of the rack, and it has a little notch right here. This little notch lines up with this threaded part on the rack, so something can go through there. I'm not sure what they're for just yet. About 2 inches out, let's get them mounted.
Next, we're going to insert the light pods. All we're going to need for the light pods are the pod itself, the mounting bracket, the long screw out of the pod box, the nut, the flat washer, and lock washer. Also, keep your pick ready in order to get the backer screws inside the channels to where you need them. First things first, you want to adjust the foot all the way out away from the pod itself. You're going to need clearance for the bracket to go right up against it, just like so. Now there are 2 different brackets that look exactly the same. They orient in different directions. You want to make sure that the pod arms orient towards the light hole cutout. This is obviously the wrong bracket. This bracket, once you insert it in, the arms are facing directly towards the light cutout. And now we're going to mount the light onto the pod bracket. Inserting the pod into the bracket, it has to go in this orientation to get the most articulation out of your light. If you insert it the wrong way, you will have much less articulation in how your light mounts. Once you have the bracket and light aligned, take the long screw in the box of hardware from your pod, insert it into the bracket, then insert the flat washer, the lock washer, and then the nut. And now we're going to tighten up the pod to the bracket using a 10mm wrench and the included Allen wrench. And just tighten it up just enough so the pod can move freely, but still stay in one spot. So the way we're gonna mount this is we're going to leave an ever so slight gap between the light and this faceplate in order to avoid any kind of impacting of the light to this aluminum panel. Now we're gonna take our pick here and we're going to move the nuts, the T-nuts that are inside the channels into the correct mounting position. And then take our screws and then take your M4 Allen key, tighten it down. So I found it best if you start on the inside screw first. This one was by far a lot more challenging to get to. Once you have that in, then you can index the light where you need it to be. Got the first light pod installed. It is a 20-watt light with 2200 lumens of wattage, and it is a flood pattern. They're really, really nice, and they're probably the most complex thing that we've actually installed on this rack so far. That's why Trev had me do it.
This bad boy here is the dual light. It's a dual because it has the white lights in the center and then amber on the sides. This thing is a whopper. This has 22,000 lumen, and that's gonna be bright. And it is, I believe, 240 watts, so it's conservative with the power as well. So I think it's gonna be a good fit on the 4Runner. Just like the light pods, there are special brackets for these that attach onto the bottom of the extruded aluminum and to the front side of the extruded aluminum. So again, depending on the light bar that you get, you'll get special brackets for it. This goes into the center, this goes into the back, and you can still adjust it. We're still working with the rack inverted, so just remember when you're working on the light, that the light has to be inverted as well. So the curved part is going to be down. That'll be the top of the light, and it gives you a little bit more clearance because it's actually going to be under the bar a little bit. With the mounting plate upside down, it'll fit in this configuration, and it's going to attach with these two holes on both sides. Long screw first. And short screw in the back. Now that it's loosely on, we are going to measure both sides to make sure it's centered and then crank it down. Boom shakalaka, centered.
Took you long enough.
I'm a perfectionist.
Mm-hmm. Now you're gonna bump it and mess it all up.
That's why I'm gonna tighten it up now. We're getting ready to install the rack on top of the roof, and we have these aluminum spacers. These actually fit right on the little plastic rings that the bolts feed through. However, what I'm gonna do as added protection is just put a little clear silicone around the base of it just to make sure there's no water ingress or anything into the vehicle.
With Trevor in the process of putting the spacers in the 4Runner with the silicone, all I'm doing is on the rack that is freshly done and complete, taking all the wires and routing them onto the top. That way nothing drags in the silicone or moves the spacer while we're putting it on top. Old rack, new rack. Old rack, new rack. We've got the rack placed on top of the 4Runner, and it fits really, really nice. It was super awkward getting on. It's not heavy, but when the weight is out over your head at an awkward angle, and we're trying to climb ladders and whatnot to get up here, it was very, very awkward. It might help to have a third person just to kind of help the back end balance, because all the weight is on the front end, but you're still lining up holes in the back end.
Now that we have the roof rack on, we can adjust the mounting feet over the factory holes using the factory bolts that are 12 millimeter, putting them back in, and right now just hand tight. Ran into a slight issue, and when I mean slight, essentially the factory bolts do not fit into the bracket that's installed. The packaging came with 2 brackets, and what we didn't do is actually put a bolt in here. This one, it fits. That one, it does not. The only difference between the two is this one has the mounting on the front, where the other one had mounting holes on the bottom. I figured that that would probably be more secure, so we chose to go with those ones, but this one would be the correct bracket for the 5th gen 4Runner that I have.
What's the fix?
The fix, there's 2 ways we could do it. We could just leave it on, drill out the spot there for the bolt to fit in, or we could just unbolt the 3 bolts on each side, pull the whole thing off, reinstall the rear valance, or pull the rear valance off, put the new bracket on, reinstall the rear valance, and then reinstall the whole thing. And I think we're gonna go with option 2 and tear everything apart and put it back together, but leave the rack on.
So what we're doing now is switching over to the other bracket, and the captured channel nut here goes onto the front face that faces towards the front of the vehicle.
And here are the differences between the 2 brackets. Literally, the 2 holes, and this is the only difference, and of course, the width on these guys.
Done. While the sloth is still working on his side, let me show you what this should look like.
It is installed. Now all we have to do is go ahead and tighten up all the factory bolts, and this thing is on. Except for wiring. Another day.
Nailed it.
These are the 2 button head bolts that screw up underneath the extruded aluminum, and they are slightly difficult to get to. We have a standard Allen wrench is the only thing I can get to fit in there, but it only turns about that much, and that's about it.
Try and try again.
Any ideas?
Try harder.
Try harder.
Do what you're doing now, but be successful at it. We'll let him struggle with that off camera while I get mine done in a snap of a finger. And just like that, I'm done. Trev is still working.
I hate you.
Can't help it, I'm just good at what I do. Let me show you the clearance that the tailgate has to the back of the rack. It's close, but it does clear. That was the install of the Cali raised LED roof rack for Trev's 4Runner, and that was, it was not a hard install, but it was super, super time consuming.
It's like doing a big Lego set.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of steps. If you miss it and you have to go back and do something again, it's gonna be twice as hard. So make sure that you're doing it correctly the first time, because it could end up taking a lot longer.
Yeah. However, it was completely worth it.
Absolutely.
The truck has completely changed. It looks like a true overland rig now, not
It's
a
always been an
mom
over-
4Runner.
It's always been an over.
Mama's 4Runner. It's no longer. It's gone. Good riddance.
It definitely changes the look. However, what I like is that it's really sleek. It's low profile. I mean, that thing is really clean looking.
Yeah.
The lines on it, I love how it hangs a little bit wide.
Yeah, very, very good fitment.
Yeah.
Very sleek, like Trev said. The light bar cover is super cool, very innovative.
Yeah.
I know it's the law in some states. You have to have that upper light bar covered.
Probably California.
Probably California. Suckers. But so we did not do the electric installation in this video, and probably not going to. The electric is so just specific to each vehicle and a lot of nuance to it, so we're probably just not going to do it. All the tools we used will be linked in the description below to kind of give you guys just a head start on what you need to actually get this installation done. All right, guys, that is all we have. Be sure to follow us on IG. It's adventurebuilt_. Be sure to like, be sure to subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.
Peace.
Yep, do it.
I don't like that one.
Do it.
I don't like that one.
You want to do it, redo it?
Yeah, let's redo that. I was like, what the hell?
Do it.
Puberty.
Okie dokie. Keeping it.
Did not do that well. No breakage. Pew pew.
Please talk about the thoroughness.
The thoroughness. I'm gonna move it down. Gotta go down. Brass monkey. God, why am I like having such problems with that?
Are you having a heart attack?
I'm done.
Are you having...
God, this thing's unruly. Is this weather stripping? Just
No.
bulb?
Edge trim.
Edge trim. Sure. I don't know what to these attach to. So now we're going. All right, let me do it again.
Attached to... Maybe laying down for this one?
Getting tired.
Totally gonna block you.
Words. You want me to do the whole thing?
Sure.
Because I don't even remember what I said.
Let's start. Let's do that.
I don't even know what I said already. All right. Pizza burp. All right.
Factory bolts and everything? What does that even mean?
And everything. I know. As soon as I said it, I was just like,
Factory bolts and submarines.
I'm so tired.